Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glory to Srila Prabhupada. Welcome to His Holiness Candramauli Maharaj's daily online discourses. And today's class will be a continuation of Srimad Bhagavatam, Chapter 1, Canto 1, Chapter 11, Lord Krishna's entrance into Dwarka, verse number 29 onwards. Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glory to Srila Prabhupada.
Hi, glory to Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Tatputramantam Arogya. Sneha Smita Payodara. Aishwadi Tatmanaha. Kishichor Netra Jaya Jalai. The mothers, after embracing their son, sat him on their laps. Due to pure affection, milk sprang from their breasts. They were overwhelmed with delight, and the tears from their eyes wetted the Lord. Purport. When Lord Krishna was at Vrindavan, even the cows would become moistened by the affection towards him. And he would draw milk from the nipples of every affectionate living being. So what to speak of the stepmothers, who is already as good as his own mother? Omagyan timidandasya gina jana salakaya. Chaksun militam yena tasmai Shri Gurave namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale. Srimakti Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine. Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Pasyatya Venkatarine. Panchakalpa Tarubhischa Kripa Sindhu Pevaja. Hitanam Bhavani Gyo Vaishnavi Gyo Namaho Namaha. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda. Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So here is the reference to the mood of Vrindavan, which is the mood of the Vaishnavas towards the Lord. What is that mood? Pure love. That love is not something that is developed. It is not something that is created by situation. It is actually uncovered by the process of bhakti. The scriptures enjoin Nitya Siddha, Krishna Prema, Taruka Bunoi, Sravanari Siddhi Chitte, Koriya Udoi. All living entities have a natural loving attraction for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Just as iron filings will automatically be pulled into the purview of the magnet, automatically, without anything else needed. So in the same way, to love Krishna is our nature. Because we are part of him, we come from him, we are connected to him always. In the material world, that connection is covered by material body and the desire the living entity has to explore the material energy in order to find a type of happiness based on enjoying the senses and the mind and even the intelligence. So this roaming of the living entities towards a nature that is far into its actual existence is the cause of our forgetfulness of our actual position in relationship to Krishna. And so because of that, the living entity suffers. If you have a mathematical equation that you want to do, say you want to do some very complicated mathematical problems that require much intelligence and ability in the field of mathematics, you have to know basic mathematics in order to do algebra, trigonometry, geometry. All of the higher forms of math require a great amount of learning and intelligence. But if you don't know basic math, or if you make a mistake in the very beginning of your equation, then whatever you do after that will be considered to be away from the actual desired goal, because the foundation is off. So because we're looking for happiness in the material world, we can't find happiness anywhere. And that is our problem, because we're looking in the wrong place. And there's a little analogy that comes where one man, he learns that there's a great treasure somewhere in the world. And this treasure has been described in detail by his friends and by others who also are looking for that treasure. Seems like no one can find it, but everyone knows it exists. And so this man says, well, if that is the case, then what is the use of anything else? If I find that treasure, all my desires will be fulfilled. I will be happy. And so following information includes reading books, getting ideas, hearing from other people. He sets out on his journey to find that treasure. But somehow or other, because he is not qualified to understand where that treasure is, he keeps looking for it where it doesn't exist. And he keeps going. And then, of course, at one point, old age catches up with him, and then he dies. And then his relatives, heirs come, others, they take the responsibility, take his body back to the home, and they want to bury his body in his, homeland, or in his actual home. So in his backyard, they dig a hole, put his body in, and guess what? There's the treasure. What he's been looking for is already in his own backyard. That's the story of life. Everyone is looking for something that is not there, but it's there right next to us. It's in our heart, and that is our natural love for Krishna. So the process of bhakti is meant to awaken that love through the process of hearing about the Lord, chanting his glories, and remembering those glories, absorbing ourselves in activities that connect us with Krishna. And that's called, in a very simplified way, consciousness of the Absolute, or Krishna consciousness. And so the living entity is stuck. They have made their path material desires, material happiness. And although they know, or some living entities know, that the path of material life is not the actual path of success, the path of bhakti, still, because of their attachment to the material life, they cannot fully connect themselves with the fact of bhakti. This, and why is that? This is called Nityabhata. Nityabhata means that the living entity in the material world has been in this world for millions of lives. This is not our first life, and it may also not be our last one in this material world. So Maya Vatse, Kacho Bese, Kacho Abhibu Dizal, Deep Krishna Das, A Vishwa, Kalida Adukanai. So life after life, according to our desires and activities, we compound our material consciousness by taking various types of bodies. There are 8,400,000 species of life. And through the evolutionary process, the living entity gets to the human form of life after traversing through 8 million species of life. So the consciousness that comes upon the living entity, because as we transmigrate from one body to another, we keep our same mind, we keep our same intelligence, and our sense of material identity. So that travels from one life to another. So just like if you keep piling on dirt on something, after some time, you can't even understand what's underneath the dirt, nor you can see it. Maybe you can't even detect that it's there, even by experiment. So due to our continual consciousness of conditioned life, a living entity has piled on so many layers of material attachments that they become so strong that even you find people who are being informed of their actual identity cannot understand it, nor can they even see the benefit of practicing to awaken that. They're so much overwhelmed by their consciousness of material life that spiritual life seems to be so, what we say, aloof from them. Although they may acknowledge it, they can't understand it or maybe not even practice it. But a devotee knows, well, yes, my love for Krishna is there, and the process of bhakti is available to awaken that. And it's very simple. Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu Smaranam. To hear and chant the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the association of others who are doing the same. Because association is the foundation by which inspiration and enthusiasm come to practice the whole process of bhakti, along with teaching us what is our deficiencies and guiding us where we should be moving in our direction to awaken our master life in Krishna. So this process is very nice, but then again, because of that attachment to the material life for many births, and even in this life, and the responsibilities that come with that kind of attachment, like social, family, economic, political, ecclesiastical, all of these different attachments compound the already consciousness. It becomes hard to focus on Krishna consciousness. It's hard because of this extra load that we carry. So therefore, the whole process of bhakti is not about creating something, it's about eliminating something. Try to understand that point because it's the essential point. There's nothing to create, there's only things to eliminate. And that is bhakti. Bhakti is like it's like the medicine that cuts through the disease and brings about the natural health of the body. The disease is foreign to the body, and the medicine is destroying the disease. And so that's why it says, Enechi asadi maya nasi badalagi harinama mahamantra lao tu magi. That medicine is hearing and chanting the glories of the Lord, which destroys the disease of material existence. So you might think, well, what is this word disease of materials? It's a little bit of a euphemism, or maybe it's just a wrongly placed thing. But actually, it actually is a very clear description of the material life, as the soul has nothing to do with the material energy, and that a living being cannot be happy when they are suffering from some type of disease. So in the same way, Baba Rog is one of the terms that is used for material disease. Baba Rog, that means the attachment that the living entity has developed in relationship to the external energy and all of the features that the external energy offers. And so that attachment is there. So you sometimes even devotees know everything that's being explained, still they can't make that turn towards spiritual life in a very serious way. And that is called Hridaya Dulabhya. And that's mentioned in Madhurya Kandambini and a few other of the scriptures, especially by Bhakti Vinod Thakur and also Rupa Goswami. They explain what is this Hridaya Dulabhya. It's translated as weakness of heart. The example might be given, you'll see it all the time, where people who smoke cigarettes are smoking, on the package, they warned them that it causes emphysema, lung cancer, complications in pregnancy. And the language is becoming very direct and very poignant. Now it says smoking kills directly, but still, people still smoke. Because they're so attached to this very insignificant pleasure, which is actually causing them a health crisis, they can't give it up, even though they know it's not good. So in the same way, we find that devotees know the material life is really not the source of happiness, but they still can't give it up. Why? Because of that compounding of that conditioning that comes life after life after life, which is reinforced by the external energy through the association of that energy in the form of friends, family members, people in general, and sociological and various types of political arrangements that designate the living entity as the material body in so many different ways. And so even though the devotee is aware, the reinforcement is always coming about what is the illusion. The illusion is constantly being reinforced. So therefore, Rupa Goswami explains in the Nectar of Instruction, Utsaha nistaya darya tat karma pravartanam. And he goes on to say, asada sadhu sangha, asadu sangha, not sadhu sangha, and nivritti, what is it? Sadhu vritti. These 6 principles are favorable for the execution of devotional service. And what are they? Enthusiasm. What is enthusiasm? Enthusiasm means to use one's intelligence to execute devotional service. And the scriptures and the spiritual teachers, especially one spiritual master, gives us the intelligence by which we can formulate our activities in devotional service. So if we apply that intelligence to the activities, that is called enthusiasm. The next one, nistaya darya. Nistaya means determination. As we explained, the material energy is always there to push us back in the material world. To practice devotional service means to go against the current of material life, which is to enjoy the senses and to make arrangements for continued enjoyment of the senses. And so that determination, which is the feature of the will is something that we apply when we really want to get something done. When we really want to be successful at doing something, we become very determined to carry out the activities, just like you might say that a woman has to undergo so many difficulties in order to bring in a child. You know, the 9 months carrying a child it's difficult, and there's a lot of restrictions, a lot of considerations that has to be made, and of course, giving birth is not a very easy process. Much pain is there, but still, because there will be a beautiful child coming out, the lady, the mother, the prospective mother, will happily go through all of that because there will be something wonderful as a result. Now, in the same way, she's determined to undergo the difficulties. And the same way, the devotee is determined to accept some responsibilities and some activities, which are the feature of the determinate will in order to achieve Krishna consciousness. And so this is also called a sankalpa. A sankalpa is one makes a vow to achieve something even before they begin the activity. And they say that whatever it takes to accomplish that activity, bring it on. Let it come. It doesn't matter. I'm going to be successful. I'm determined. I'm not going to give it up, no matter what happens like that. You'll see, people who fight in wars, they put their life on stake for some nationalistic interest. And they're determined to fulfill that, even despite that their lives are in jeopardy. So they have that determination. So Krishna consciousness requires that determination because the material energy is very strong, and our material attachments are also long-term and can also be very strong. So that determined effort is required, and that's explained that the more one gives up the activities of sense gratification, the more one's determination in the execution of Krishna consciousness becomes fortified, becomes stronger. So if one is trying to still enjoy the material energy and practice Krishna consciousness, one's determination will be spoiled, and one will not be able to stay in the process of determination. So one has to at least consciously give up the activities. The desire still may be there, but the activities must be directed towards Krishna, our devotional service, and then that gives it that strengthens the will. Just like Srila Prabhupada, how did he create this ISKCON movement? Complete determination, unbreakable determination. And Prabhupada even explained that I got so many resistance. I got resistance from my god brothers. I got resistance from the Brahmins. I got resistance from family members. He got resistance from so many. And at the same time, he had to go through difficulties in order to establish Krishna consciousness. His typewriter was stolen. His Bhagavad Gita was stolen in India. He wrote the Bhagavad Gita in India. It got stolen. He came, he wrote it again. The second time he wrote it, it got stolen again. Only when he did it the third time was he actually able to put out the Bhagavad Gita. But Prabhupada wasn't deterred by the fact that twice his Bhagavad Gita was stolen. So he was determined to execute Krishna consciousness. So these are the features that are required in order for one to become successful in spiritual life. And then the next one is nischaya. Nischaya means patience, that despite one's determined effort, still one has to be patient for the results. Results may not come immediately. And through cultivation of transcendental knowledge, one can develop patience. Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains this in his commentary on this particular verse in one book called Bhakti Aloka, where he explains by cultivating transcendental knowledge, one can develop the patience and ones that is required in the execution of devotional service. And Prabhupada explains how patience is. For example, we'll use the example of the mother and the child again. The wife, the lady, she gets married, she has a husband. But now she has to be patient before the child comes. It will not come immediately, although all the ingredients are in place. Still, there is a process that has to unfold. And that will take 9 to 10 months before that comes. So she's patient. She's patient. She knows that if she follows the principles that allows for the child to grow and everything is there, then of course the results will be favorable. So this patience is very important part of our devotional service. And Krishna explains that in the Bhagavad Gita, the quality of patience. And it's mostly mentioned as a feminine quality. If you were to compare it on the material level, generally, according to the species or the genders, generally the women species or the women gender, female gender, has much more patience than the males generally. This is the case. Of course, man can also adopt it too. But because of their body, they're required, Krishna has given them that blessing. That's mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita. They have more patience in their life, in the different circumstances that they find themselves in. But that's a general principle. It's not an absolute principle. But therefore, one has to practice this patience. And then what is the process? Tat tat karma bhavartanam, hearing and chanting, and remembering the Supreme Personality of Godhead and engaging in devotional service, practical activity. The next one is giving up the association of non-devotees who cause the process of devotional service to stop or even become lost. And that is that association with the non-devotees means develop an affection for non-devotees. One can be in the same physical proximity and not develop association. Association simply means affection for. So we need association. So therefore it says that affection should be applied to the association of devotees. And in that association, then that affection will, affection will naturally develop as we follow the process. But if we develop affection for the non-devotees, we start to imbibe some of their characteristics and qualities. And that becomes a process of slowing down and maybe even stopping. Therefore, when Lord Chaitanya was asked by Sanatana Goswami, what is the first principle of a devotee? What is the first activity? He said, At satsanga tayaga e Vaishnava achar. That one has to give up the association of asat, the non-devotees, and take to the association of sat, the devotees. And the Lord Chaitanya made that clear, that this is the first and most essential principles of practicing devotional service. That requires some more discussion, but I'll leave it at that for now, because the exam, if you think about it in terms of what it means not to accept their association by becoming submissive to their values and their ideas and their ways of living. We keep our principles despite wherever we are, whoever we are, and whatever we're doing. And the last one is sadhu vritti. Sadhu means the previous acharyas, and vritti means to follow in the footsteps. So this really means that we should follow the process as given by the previous acharyas and not concoct our own ideas in devotional service. And that sadhu vritti is divided into two categories for the brahmacharis and sannyasis, and for the grihastas. There's two sets of principles that follow the sadhu vritti, and that's explained throughout the shastras. One should know that. What is my ashram and what are the duties in my ashram? Okay, so these are these 6 principles by Rupa Goswami, and he also explains 6 principles that take away or are detrimental to the process of bhakti. But we'll stop here because of time. So, any questions or comments?
Thank you, Maharaj, for this wonderful class, highlighting many key points on how love for Krishna is natural position and how we are finding happiness in the wrong place. You give a very wonderful example of the treasure hunt, and also the reinforcement that is done by illusion. That was very nicely explained, Maharaj, and how using nectar of instructions, principles of determination, patience, and association, we can overcome and practice. So, dear devotees, I would request you to switch on your cameras to make the session more interactive, more personal. And please go ahead and raise your hands or ask questions, realizations regarding today's class and any key points that Maharaj has mentioned. You can also post in your questions on the chat and I can read it out for you. Thank you. Hare Krishna Mataji, Sridevi Mataji, please go ahead.
Thank you, Dinanath Gauranga Prabhu. Dear Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. All glories to our wonderful Guru Parampara. Guru Maharaj, you made so many important points in today's class. And what stood out for me is association. Association. That we can get overwhelmed by the external energy and buy into the illusionary concept of this will make you happy. You just buy this and everything will be fine, etc. But my concern is even when we are in the association of devotees, even when we are given up the association of non-devotees, we can still be very isolated if we don't make attempts to have deep friendships, open our heart, share our concerns, get our doubts dispelled. We can still be very much influenced by the external energy because we are very isolated. So I was wondering if you could give some tips about building strong relationships within devotee community.
Yeah, that follows in the same pattern in the Nectar of Instructions, verse number 4, where it's mentioned that there are 6 loving exchanges that are the foundation to develop that association in a way that that association becomes uplifting, enjoyable, and profitable in our process of the practice of devotional service. Hearing confidential thoughts, speaking confidential thoughts, giving gifts, receiving gifts, giving in charity, and I'm sorry, not giving prashadam and accepting prashadam. Srila Prabhupada Rupa Goswami mentions it. Prabhupada gives quite a lengthy purport explaining how that these activities go on everywhere in the world. A person may like to get a contract with a particular person, and so that person will invite him to lunch, and in order to they talk about the contract and they share eating together in a more intimate way. So there's this friendliness that comes by way of the world that people exchange with each other in order to accomplish their goals in life. So our goal is to become Krishna conscious. And our goal is at the same time to experience the happiness that comes by way of Krishna consciousness through the process of Krishna consciousness. And so in the association of devotees, we have to practice these 6 loving exchanges. And if you read that verse and the purport, it's not so easy to understand what those 6 are and how to execute them, especially the first one, giving confidential information to others and hearing that. That also takes the form of glorifying the Lord and hearing the glories of the Lord. And also speaking friendly words to another devotee and developing a relationship in that. We develop friends in this material world. When we're kids, we grow up and we develop friendship really easy. As we get older, we find it's harder to develop friendship or requires more of an effort. And then we look for similarities in relationships in order for that friendship to develop. And there are, not only in relationships, but in the mentalities. So in the association of devotees, it's the same thing. We have to somehow or other make an effort, and it's based on service. So in that association, if you're trying to serve, then it becomes easy to associate and natural. If you're trying to get something from that association, you may be able to get something, but you won't be able to feel the happiness of that association. So we're trying to give something in that association, not so much get something. Getting will automatically come as we follow these 6 principles like that. And that's a seminar in itself. If you go onto my website, that seminar has been posted there. I gave it at least 2 or 3 different times, and you can find out more about it. And we also have very elaborate descriptions of how this whole loving exchange can be played out in different ways. But it centers around completely the association with the devotees. And if we don't develop loving relationships with devotees, or at least friendly relationships with the devotees, we will look for it outside with the non-devotees. It's automatic. Because you can't be without that experience. It's just part of your nature. We are social beings. We require interaction. Our loving relationship with Krishna is there, but we also need those loving relationships or friendship relationships on this level also. So we practice that. And if we're in the mood of service, it becomes easy and natural. And therefore, in order for it to bring it about, there is a certain etiquette that comes with developing that association based on our relationship with others in the practice of Krishna consciousness. And what I mean with senior devotees, equals, and people that are brand new like that, there's different relationships that develop. And that's explained very simply. So practice those 6 loving exchanges. I ask devotees, I say, every day you should do one of the 6 loving exchanges with somebody. Make it a point every day to do one of those 6 loving exchanges with someone, another devotee. Opening up your mind or hearing another person's confidential thoughts. It's not about gossip or criticism. That doesn't fit in. Give a gift. Think about, oh, maybe I can give a nice gift to that devotee and she'll be happy or he'll be happy. You see what somebody needs and you give it to them. And automatically you establish a relationship. And giving prasadam, accepting prasadam, these are loving exchanges.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj. If I just humbly ask a follow-up question, if that's okay.
Did you get the first part?
Yes, I made notes and I'm digesting that.
Continue.
Okay. So yesterday was Mother's Day, and to honor the mothers and to just do a little service to all of the young mothers, I invited them to come, and we had a little mother sangha together. Every mother came with her kid or kids, and it was sweet, but the kids were taking up so much of the mother's energy that we hardly could get any discussion off the ground, what to speak of any reading of Prabhupada's books or anything like that. But because it was the very first one, I did not say anything. But one of the mothers who had left her child with a babysitter, she said, maybe for the next time we can all, make space so that we can have genuine sangha and make arrangements for babysitting so that when we come together, we genuinely can have time together as mothers. So what is your suggestion, Guru Maharaj? Should I actually say, please leave your kids and come, or should I just allow things to develop naturally?
As we develop our temples, all of the devotees in the congregation realize that there has to be a place for the children. You can't just leave them somewhere. So they create a room where the children can all congregate together, and then 1 or 2 of the senior ladies, somebody who can work with kids, takes the responsibility of doing that. Well, and it gives the kids a chance to be themselves in an environment where they are not disturbing the parents or not becoming a burden. And at the same time, they're happy. When they're in with the grown-ups, they're just running this way and that way. They want to do something. The parents are restricting them, pulling them back. The kids are not happy. The parents are not happy. So you have to have a place and an arrangement for the children. That is something that cannot be neglected or rejected. You have to do that. Especially in temples. In meetings like this, you can do the same thing in a smaller way. Put all the kids together. There may be different ages, but then you can also arrange that accordingly.
Thank you. Thank you, Guru Maharaj.
We have children, and it's a responsibility. We have to take care of them. That is an inviolable responsibility. You cannot neglect that. But at the same time, we also need to have the opportunity to focus on our spiritual life. And so without the concern of doing anything else, So you have to make arrangements for the kids. Basically, that's the understanding.
So that means I must make arrangements for some Mataji to come and take care of those kids. But I will not ask the Matajis themselves to leave the kids with babysitters and then come. That's not a good idea, right?
Well, they can do that too if they want to. That's up to them.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mataji. We've got two questions. So we've got first one from Revati Mataji, and then from Prem Kishori Mataji. So Revati Mataji, please go ahead.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna, Maharaj. Thank you so much for this very nice class. I have a question about Guru Maharaj. You mentioned about we can associate, but not affection for non-devotees. So we should not associate with their value, ideas, and principles. So it's still okay to associate with them, but not attached. It's like psychological level, right? Like because we have like extended family. We still have to associate with them.
Yeah, it's a burden. But the principle is give your association and don't take their association.
Mm-hmm.
When you're in association, you're give and take. You give and they give, they take and you take. If you take from them, then you also may also be affected by that because their value system is completely different. Their whole goal in life is to enjoy the senses and the mind. Our whole goal in life is to become free from that tendency and to focus on Krishna and enjoy spiritual life through the process of bhakti. You have to understand, it says in the Bhagavad Gita that there are two types of living entities, the devotees and the non-devotees. What is night for the conditioned soul is a time of awakening for the self-realized soul. And what is night for the self-realized soul is the time of awakening for the conditioned soul. That's in the Bhagavad Gita, I think the 3rd chapter. So it's crows and swans. You want to be a crow, then you act like a crow. You want to be a swan, you have to act like a swan.
Mm.
So the point is, you have to learn how to avoid becoming affectionate to their values, to their activities. Because as you develop that affection, they will naturally want to pull you into their life in different ways. And then you find yourself in an awkward situation, compromising your values, compromising your principles, compromising even your Krishna consciousness.
So we have to practice this at psychological level. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's all consciousness, yeah.
Yeah. So Guru Maharaj, like when it comes to attachment, we are still like a sadhakas. We are trying to practice this at psychological level, but also we have attachment to extended family. How to like
make that attachment Krishna conscious. That's all. Bring your family members and friends and everyone into Krishna. Be an exemplary for what you are believing. And if you are good at it, they will also be attracted to it. But if you're weak or compromising it, and then they won't be attracted.
Okay.
And you find ways to associate them centered around Krishna conscious activities, such as giving prasadam, such as explaining what you do in life. In different ways, you have to keep the mood of something devotional, something spiritual. Sometimes you have to carry out your ordinary duties, and you do that. But then you have to realize that those ordinary duties are simply just activities that you required to perform because of the situation that you have accepted. Grihastha life is like that. But we see, and there's many examples, that devotees, they gradually bring their whole family to be devotees.
Yes, Guru Maharaj. Yeah, we are trying to distribute the books. I give a lot of books to them. So they are getting exposed. They are liking the books and reading.
Yeah, you should not be, you should be strong in your belief that Krishna consciousness is the only thing in life. And if you practice in that mood, they will respect you, although they may not agree with you.
Yes, Guru Maharaj. Yeah, good. Yeah. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. There is question from Prema Kishori Mataji. Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. Thank you for the insightful class. What is the difference between Pradhan, Prakriti, and Mahat Tattva?
Pradhan, Prakriti, and Mahatattva. Pradhan is the aggregate of all of the material ingredients in a dormant stage. The Prakriti is the elements that make up that Pradhan, or the material energy in its different Mumirapana lobayu kamana buddha vacha hankarti iti ame bina prakriti astada. Earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego make up the material energy. That is called Prakriti. Pradhan is the stage before the development of the material energy. It's the interim stage where everything is in an aggregated stage. And then when Mahavishnu glances over that, that churns up the different elements. And then Brahma appears on the scene and develops those elements into the different bodies, the 8,400,000 species of life. The Mahatattva is similar to the Pradhan, but in more or less a developed state. Sometimes they call it the Hiranyagarbha also, the golden egg. So Mahatattva and Pradhan are very much similar, but in different stages. That's all. If you read the second canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, it explains these things in detail. Certain parts of the second canto describe that. Is that all right, Prem Kishori?
Yes, she says, thank you, Maharaj.
Okay. There's a lot to learn about those three. And it's all in the Bhagavatam.
Thank you, Maharaj. Maharaj, the next question is from Aarti Mataji. You want me to read it, Aarti Mataji? You can.
I don't mind. I could read it.
Yes, that would be better. Thank you.
Peter, my humble obeisance or glory to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you, Guru Maharaj. Thank you, Guru Maharaj, for the class. My question's a little long, so I'm just going to read it if you don't mind. I'm finding it a little difficult in a service we're doing at the moment. I'm not in the lead, but I work closely with the devotee in the lead. We're constantly being questioned by any decisions or changes that are being made by one particular devotee. I've made the suggestion that maybe that devotee would be better in a different service, but we also need them as we are short on kirtaniyas. Even if a senior speaks to them, things don't change for the long term. Is there anything else we can do while still coming from a place of love and not affect the relationship negatively?
So you want that person to change.
Yeah. Yeah.
In what way?
To just respect the decisions that are being made by the devotee that's in lead, not me, but the other devotee that's in lead.
Well, there's always a hierarchy, and in order for things to go on, everyone has their voice, and their voice can be expressed. But ultimately, a decision when it comes to a particular activity and a direction that's needed, a decision has to be made. So ultimately, we have to accept when there is a hierarchy, you have to accept the decision of the person who is responsible for making that decision. He can gather all of the other ideas and formulate them and decide based on what he hears from others and also their input. But ultimately, there has to be some decision. If he leaves the decisions up to them, then it becomes a little bit, can be contentious amongst the different devotees because everybody wants their way. But for the process ultimately is based on understanding what is the need and how to carry it out. And that's why you have a leader in every group. And Prabhupada made that point to Professor Katovsky in Russia. When Prabhupada said, everyone has to follow a leader. You are following Lenin and we are following Krishna. So the principle is the same. Everyone has to follow an authority. Otherwise, there's chaos, where everybody's opinion becomes, just equally done, and then nothing gets done. So everybody can give their opinion, everybody can use their intelligence to apply their understanding in the activities they perform. And ultimately, when there's some decision and it can't be solved on the local level, then you go to the authority and then they say, well, this is the way it's done, and that's fine. That principle is there throughout human nature. You can't change that. If you try to change that, all you have is what we have today, chaos. So many authorities with nothing being done. And everybody fights, and then people break up and they go out and start their own ideas because they want to be their own authority. So ultimately, I don't want to say anything too final in this thing because you have to work it out. That person, if he's not willing to follow the authority, then he doesn't fit into the activity at all.
The only issue is that we don't have as much manpower, and we need kirtanis, and he's a kirtani.
So if you can work with him and allow for some slight arrangement for what he wants to be done, at the same time, it doesn't take away from the whole idea of what you're trying to do.
Thank you, Guraj.
Thank you, Mataji. Sridevi Mataji, you have your hands raised. If you have a question, yes, please go ahead.
Thank you, Dinanath Prabhu. Guru Maharaj, at one point in the class, you said about determination, and you mentioned more one gives up sense gratification, more strength and determination will come, but more one gives in to sense gratification, weaker becomes our resolve and determination. So my question is, should we actively try to increase our determination by deliberately doing some tapasya, like I will fast. I will, even though I want to eat, I will not eat. I will try to resist. Even though it's a meal time.
Follow the recommended process. Like today's Ekadasi, right? Correct?
Yes.
So it's generally, if you want to follow Ekadasi according to how it is initially given, and you fast. But Prabhupada has given us some simpler, easier way to follow Ekadasi. So at least we follow Srila Prabhupada's standard. We can't go below that. But Ekadasi can be followed in 5 different ways. So that's an example. How much austerity you want to perform. But we understand that this fasting allows us more time and energy for chanting.
So as long as we are not negatively impacting our health, try to follow the recommended fasting regimen.
Use your intelligence, that's all.
Yes. Thank you, Guru Maharaj.
Thank you, Mataji.
Okay, I think we're at the hour. We can take one question from Raj.
Yes. Yeah. Raj Prabhu, please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Hare Krishna Maharaj. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. I was relishing the conversation and particularly the Q&A, and it struck me that there was a link between all of the questions and all of the answers, whether it was we were talking about giving association to those who were either against or not interested in Krishna consciousness, or whether it's about persuading people to do things that they don't want to do. And it seemed to be that underneath the skin of all of these things, it's that every individual, whether they admit it or not, they want to be loved. They want to be treated with love. They want to be heard. And of course, all devotees generally are very kind, but not all devotees are always sensitive to the needs and the feelings of all other individuals.
You might say there's 2 kinds of people in the world.
Okay.
Those who want to be understood and those who want to understand others.
Mm.
And there might be a little bit of each in every one of them, but there are distinctions in those 2 categories.
Mm. Very interesting. Thank you, Maharaj.
Yeah. So when you're dealing with people, you see if they want to be understood, then give them a chance. And once they get a chance to give their chance to be understood, then you can work. If you're trying to help them or try to develop a relationship, when you hear about how they want to be understood, you can work with them. Then you have the knowledge. But if 2 people want to be understood and they're both conversing, nobody gets anywhere. They go away just exhausting their energy and they come back to square one.
So should we always be trying to understand from the other person's perspective?
Yeah, we actually learn, and we can also help people when we try to understand.
And how do we heighten our ability to pick up on what they need and what they want and understand them.
By learning to ask the right questions.
Sorry, Maharaj, I'm going to be a little bit flippant now, but how do we learn?
By asking the right question.
Okay.
And the two questions that you preface is how and why.
How and why?
Why do you feel like this? And how do you think things will be better? Two
They're
questions.
like classic counselor questions.
Yeah. So in a relationship, you can also, bring out that relationship when you're dealing with that. And if you're talking and you're talking on a particular subject and you're exchanging ideas on that subject, then you focus on that. But then again, it's also how to make it happen.
Mm.
What is your role to make it happen? What is my role to make it happen?
Okay. I think there's a tendency to like rush through to get something done, and sometimes we need to take time out and just understand.
That'll go relationships. Yeah. Relationships are not very good in today's modern society because we've substituted our own desires in terms of material things in order to get these things based on the relationships we develop. We're trying to get something from that relationship, something material, something we can use. And therefore, people generally don't really communicate so much, although they speak a lot.
Mm. That reminds me of something I've been reading recently from the biography of Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj. It showed that one of his core beliefs was to treat everybody that you come across in life as one of the most important people in your life and in the future of your life.
Right. That is it. That's foundation. That means you'll give everything in that relationship, in that encounter, rather than just trying to get it over and trying to squeeze something out of it, or because we don't hear properly if we have our own ideas. That's why hearing is the most important form of learning. But then again, we call it reflective hearing or emphatic hearing. Reflective means you hear and you think about it. Emphatic is a symbol, some very same. By hearing emphatically means hearing with the idea to understand.
Mm.
So this is one of the reasons why we don't hear as good as we could, is because there's so much negativity around us that we block out that negativity as a form of protection for our mind and consciousness. And doing that constant blocking out, then it becomes easy and natural to block out things. But when it comes to hearing things that you should know and understand, you have to get through that blocking conditioning that you were already developed. Do you understand what I'm saying? Because
I think so, but I'm trying to understand. I'm trying to understand how do we make ourselves get ourselves into that position where we're not blocking out these things and we're ready to hear and listen and understand.
we have to practice emphatic listening.
Okay. It's
you have to
practice.
practice. Yeah, there's actually courses given on it.
Mm.
Like yesterday, I went to New Vrindavan and they had Krishna House. This is a concept that was developed by one senior Prabhupada disciple, setting up little ashrams all around the country now in America to bring young people into it with the same concept that Prabhupada had in the beginning, but in a more what is the word? Friendly, open, caring, understanding way. When we first brought people into Krishna consciousness, we just threw them into the ashram and said, "This is the way it is. You follow it." And there were those who did it and those who couldn't do it. So this other concept is giving more love, more consideration, more care, more openness, more friendliness, and bringing people in and allowing for them to be themselves at the same time, engaging them in devotional service. Nothing changes, 16 rounds, 4 regulative principles. And it's really starting to develop nicely in America. You should check it out. There are 6 places in America where it's going full force. And they also have 6 new places that they want to start. Quite powerful. So yesterday I was listening to their final session yesterday, which lasted about 2 hours, trying to understand exactly what they were doing. But it took me a while to really get through to what they were actually experiencing and what they were doing and how it was working. Because a lot of them were being their material self and explaining everything. So I had to kind of like put that in context with what they were trying to achieve. And so I was just listening. I didn't say anything. I didn't comment on anything. I just listened for 2 hours. And so, yeah, and then I understood what they're trying to do and how they're trying to do it. And I was inspired by the whole program. So that's something that's happening now. Once they do it in the US, they want to take it and bring it into Europe and different places also.
Thank you, Maharaj. Maharaj, are there any great personalities that we can pray to specifically to get help on our practice of emphatic hearing?
Yeah, I guess you can pray to Maharaj Parikshit. He heard for 7 days from Sukadev Goswami. You can pray to Rupa Goswami, who heard from 10 days from Lord Chaitanya. You can pray to Ramananda Roy, who heard, well, not only heard, but discussed with Lord Chaitanya the whole process of devotional service. Well, these are there. There are many incidents of great souls becoming great, persons becoming great souls simply by hearing from great souls.
Thank you very much, Maharaj. All of that has been very, very helpful.
Okay, thank you. I think I have to go because today is other activities. But we'll be back tomorrow and Wednesday for classes. And possibly, I'm not sure, Thursday also may be doable. And I have to travel on Thursday, so let's see. But anyway, read Nectar of Devotion, those 6 principles we mentioned. It's verse number 3 and verse number 4 is the 6 loving exchanges. They give you a lot of information. Prabhupada's purports explain things in detail. And if you want even greater amounts of information on that, then you read Bhakti Aloka, by Bhakti Vinod Thakur. He wrote a commentary on verse number 2 and verse number 3. And verse number 2, we should also know, and these are the 6 things that destroy bhakti. And verse number 3 are the 6 things that enhance the process of bhakti. A great book. It's a very short, but very condensed spiritual knowledge in that book.
Thank you, Maharaj, for the wonderful class and the instructions, and thank you, participants and devotees, for participation. Vansha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, His Holiness Chandramauli Maharaj ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Lord
Thank you, Guru Maharaj. Hare
Thank you very much, Guru Maharaj.